Angie Dickinson had many relationships over the course of her life. Men came and went because she was one of Hollywood's most beautiful women. Some brought happiness, while others only left heartache. There was one guy who stood out from the rest, though, among all the short-lived relationships and affairs that made the news. Now that Dickinson is 93 years old and has lived a full life, she can look back and admit the love of her life. Who is this man in the dark? Come with us as we open the blinds, from humble roots. Angie Dickinson had already captivated some of the most powerful men in Hollywood before she became famous for her part in Policewoman. Frank Sinatra loved her a lot. It was said that she made John F. Kennedy feel good. They hired her not just because she was pretty, but also because she could act. You are strong, seductive, and always in charge. People read about the guys in Angie's life, but she made history. She wasn't just someone that guys looked at. People liked and looked up to her. Angie owned the parts she played when she was on stage. Her big break came when she played Sergeant Pepper Anderson in Policewoman. It wasn't just a big moment for TV. It changed the way people lived. A woman led an hour-long drama in prime time for the first time, and she did it with both power and charm. Angie knew how to run a room as well as the camera. You couldn't miss her, but her story didn't start on a red carpet. It began in a small town in North Dakota's plains. She was just Angeline Brown before the glitz, the dresses, and the flashing lights of Hollywood cameras. She was from a small town with big dreams and a spark that couldn't be put out. She was born on September 30, 1931, in Culm, North Dakota, a small town in the prairie. She was the middle girl in a German-American family that worked hard. The people who raised her, Frederica and Leo Henry Brown, had deep roots in the area. Leo was a well-known newspaper owner who ran both the Culm Messenger and the Edgeley Mail. He loved writing and telling stories. That effect would last a long time on Angie, who would one day capture people not with words on paper, but with the magnetic pull of her voice on TV. From the start, stories were all around her. She was raised as a Roman Catholic in a home where rules and creativity coexisted. Her father was always the Renaissance man in the town. He ran the paper and was the projectionist at the only movie theater in town. Angie, when she was young, was always glued to the movie theater where she watched black and white stories come to life until tragedy struck and the theater burned down. Even so, the seed was already there. She was no longer just going to the movies for fun. They worked like magic. Angie's life changed a lot in 1942 when she was only 10 years old. The Brown family packed up their things and moved from the quiet hills of North Dakota to the sunny suburbs of Southern California. They moved to Burbank, which is very close to Hollywood. Angie was still a long way from the bright lights of the city, but she quickly showed that she was more than just a pretty face. The year before she finished from Bellarmine Jefferson High School at age 15, she won the 6th annual Bill of Rights essay contest, a nod to the fact that she has a lot of journalism blood in her. Her mind was very sharp, and she was driven. At first, she wanted to be a writer like her father, but she went to college at Immaculate Heart in Glendale Community College and got a business degree by 1954. She worked at the Lockheed Air Terminal, which is now Bob Hope Airport, and even in a parts shop during that time. Angie never thought of herself as better than the work she did, even though it was simple. She was working hard, learning, and taking it all in. Then 1952 came along. Angie Brown changed her name to Angie Dickinson when she married Gene Dickinson, someone who plays football. The name would stay with them even after they broke up. Fate in Dickinson's big break came to her out of the blue, as it often does in Hollywood movies. Angie competed in a local trial for Miss America and came in second. This was good enough for a casting agent to notice her. She got a job as one of 6 beautiful showgirls on the Jimmy Durant show because of that small break. Even in a group of beautiful and talented people, she stood out because of her stunning poise and charm. After that, the dominoes started to fall. A TV director saw something unique about her that went beyond her looks. She had a presence. He told her she should try acting. Angie took the advice seriously and jumped into the craft with the heart of a student and the soul of a performance. She began to appear on the Colgate Comedy Hour and other variety shows after NBC called her. She met Frank Sinatra during this time and quickly became one of her best friends for life. He was an ally and companion in the crazy world of show business. Her first role was in an episode of Death Valley Days on New Year's Eve 1954. It was a small start, but it led to something bigger, with parts in everything from matinee theater to Buffalo Bill Jr. Angie quickly became a mainstay of the golden age of TV. Such as General Electric Theater and City Detective, she could do many things well. At one point it was soft and sincere, and at another it was angry and unwavering. Her roles in Gunsmoke, The Virginia, and Cheyenne showed that she could handle guns, ride horses, and run a scene like no other. Dickinson was one of the most recognized faces on TV by the late 1950s. Her first part, which wasn't credited to her, was in the 1954 movie Lucky Me, which starred the bubbly Doris Day. If you blink, you might miss her. It was the start of something big, though. Over the next few years, she started getting more and more small parts. From the start, she made it clear that she didn't want to go the way Marilyn Monroe or Jane Mansfield did. She didn't want to be another platinum blonde beauty whose looks were shaped into a stereotype. Studios still tried, dyeing her naturally dark brown hair a soft honey blonde. This was just the right amount of change to meet the standards of beauty at the time, but not so much that she felt limited. She planned to make use of her range. It wasn't a big bang when she got her big break. It happened slowly in a dusty town. In 1959, Rio Bravo, which was directed by Howard Hawks, was a major movie that made Dickinson a real Hollywood leading lady. John Wayne played Feathers, a flirty card dealer who gets the eye of the tough sheriff. Dickinson was beautiful as Feathers. She did well against Dean Martin, Ricky Nelson, and Walter Brennan, who were all big names in the group. It was funny, sexy, and had a hint of mischief about it that made her stand out. From the prairies of North Dakota to the heights of Hollywood fame, Angie Dickinson's life was anything but normal. She refused to be typecast and avoided cliches. Not only did she become an icon for how she looked, but also for how she behaved in every age of movies and TV shows, always changing, always in charge, and always memorable. The part that Angie Dickinson played in The Policewoman. Ann Dickinson had already made a name for herself in Hollywood by the early 1970s. People knew her for her sexy edge, her control on screen, and her ability to switch between B-movie grit and A-list charm with ease. Even though she didn't want to watch TV, it called to her anyway. Dickinson was in one episode of Police Story in March 1974. Police Story is a gritty variety show known for showing police work in a realistic way. She and the show were both big hits. Both viewers and the network reacted right away. NBC made her an offer. She could be the lead in a spin-off, a weekly show, or her own show. Dickinson fought back at first. At the time, TV, especially for women, had a bad image for making characters into stereotypical types, but the producers made a strong case. It would be different for this job. The most important thing is that it would show her to millions of people every week. In this case, Dickinson agreed. Policewoman came out later that year, and Dickinson played Sergeant Suze Ann Pepper Anderson, a cop in the criminal conspiracy unit of the Los Angeles Police Department. She worked secretly, changing into different identities as she looked into the worst parts of the city. Sergeant Bill Crowley, played by Earl Holliman, was her superior officer. Charles Dirop and Ed Bernard played her fellow investigators. From the start, Dickinson had a firm grip on the screen. She wasn't tough just to show that she could. The Pepper was sharp, calm, and caring. Someone who could be in charge without yelling. The crowd reacted. It didn't take long for the show to become a surprise hit, not just in the U.S. but all over the world. She was more than just a novelty during a time when female stars in dramas were not common. It was a change. She won a Golden Globe and was nominated for 3 Emmys in a row for Best Lead Actress in a Drama Series. Policewoman had 4 seasons, and when it was at its best, Dickinson was one of the most well-known women on TV. But there was a cost to the victory. In an interview in 2019, she talked about the show with a hint of sorrow. The shooting program never stopped. Because of the long hours and low pay, she had to turn down parts in movies that could have taken her career in other ways. Also, she was always under pressure to keep up her appearance. She once joked, "Are my legs being used? That's all I have to sell." Dickinson had some say in the writing, but she was often put in scenes that relied heavily on her good looks, like taking a call while soaking in a bubble bath. She went along with it, but there was always a tension between what the character was like and what the business expected of her. Still, Policewoman had an effect that went far beyond its numbers. Police stations all over the country saw a lot more applications from women. A lot of them were motivated by what they saw on TV. Pepper Anderson wasn't just a fake person. She stood for what women could do and where they could fit in. Dickinson knew the time in history that she had helped shape. When the Los Angeles Police Department gave her an honors doctorate in 1987, she smiled and took it. "You can now call me Dr. Pepper." She played Pepper Anderson again in NBC Ringo's special with Ringo Starr and John Ritter. And she made fun of her own image in Bob Hope's Christmas specials and a 1987 episode of Saturday Night Live. She did this for both comedy and nostalgia. A lot of people in Holly would have trouble matching their busy careers with their private lives. Angie Dickinson has a very troubled love life. Angie Dickinson often put her family first, even when the attention could have pulled her in a different way. A long time before she was famous, Angie married Glendale College football star Gene Dickinson in 1952. They met in college and fell in love, but their marriage ended in 1959. In the same year, she got her big break when she was cast as Feathers, the flirty gambler in Rio Bravo. She became a symbol after that act, and it was the start of her rise in Hollywood. Over the next few years, her personal life got almost as much attention as her acting parts. A lot of powerful men in American society were romantically linked to Dickinson. Frank Sinatra was one of them. President John F. Kennedy, who she worked with in Ocean's 11. But it was when she married the famous composer Burt Bacharach in 1965 that her private life became most clear. Bacharach wrote hits like "I Say a Little Prayer" and "What the World Needs Now Is Love." They were married for 15 years, which is not often seen in the show business. Dickinson once said she was crazy about Bacharach, and for a while they were able to combine fame, ambition, and love with amazing grace. They had their only child, a girl named Nikki, in 1966. Born 3 months early and weighing only 1 lb-10 Oz, Nikki's life was in danger. Dr. S. told her chances were not good. Angie and Bert were proud of their daughter's growth every hour as they watched her grow. Added an extra ounce in a day that wasn't bad. Nikki made it through, but the problems kept coming up. She later had trouble seeing, and doctors finally told her she had Asperger syndrome. For Dickinson, the event changed everything. You could choose a career based on more than just scripts and face time. They were about how close they were to home. She began turning down parts, some of which were big chances, so she could be more present. She turned down the famous role of Hot Lips Houlihan in MASH because it would have kept her away from her daughter too much. She insisted on limits even when she became a policewoman in 1974. Instead of working extra hours, Dickinson chose to be home in time to cook Bacharach and Nikki dinner. They took a rare stand in a field where people work long hours and personal lines are often crossed. But for Dickinson, home life wasn't something that had to be crammed in between shoots. It was what everything else was built on. Because she wanted to spend more time with her family, she turned down big-name parts that could have helped her move up in Hollywood, but she never seemed to regret it. The things she did showed that she knew what fame cost and chose when and how to pay for it. Angie Dickinson was sure of one thing before police made her famous. Her husband became more famous than her, which she didn't want to happen. In the mid-1970s, when Angie's success was on the rise, Burt Bacharach was having a rough time. He was having a rough time at work, especially after his longtime partner Dionne Warwick sued him over a contract disagreement. Cracks were also starting to show up at home. Even though she loved Bacharach very much, she once admitted that she was crazy about him. Angie was the one who really gave up a lot. At work, she set clear rules. She wouldn't work on the weekends, extra hours, or at night if she could avoid it. She would go home right after work to cook dinner for Bert and their daughter Nikki. Earl Holliman, her co-star and friend, was very clear about it once. Angie had a hard time. She was trying to keep up a successful TV show and a marriage, and it was clear that it was hard for her. Angie and Bert had been living apart quietly for 2 years by 1976, just 2 years after Policewoman. The couple wasn't technically divorced, but they weren't living together anymore. Most of the time, Bacharach was at their beach house in Delmare, and Angie was with Nicky at their LA home. Angie agreed with her friends that it was a strange situation. She claimed that they were still handling it their own way. She once said, "We're seeing other people." Even though she felt faithful to Bert, she couldn't stop the drift. "But I still consider myself married to Bert, quite married. I love him, I adore him." In 1981, after being apart for 5 years, they got a divorce. Angie partly blamed herself. She said that she worked too many hours and that she would have quit if the roles had been switched. Bacharach married the singer, songwriter Carol Bayer Sager in the end. She told him she wished him well and knew he needed someone who could relate to him on a deeper level than she could. Still, their bond never really broke down. Angie kept pictures of him all over the house, and their love for Nicky was what held them together. The same way her father was, Nicky liked music. She liked to learn about science, nature, and the world around her, and she played the drums. She was not at all like her mother in some ways. Nicky once told Angie that they'd never be equally feminine, and that really stuck with her. Nicky had trouble seeing and Asperger syndrome for a long time, but studying geology at Cal Lutheran University gave her a sense of purpose. She got her degree with the help of her father, but she couldn't work in the field because she had bad eyesight. Nicky killed herself in her Thousand Oaks flat in April 2012. She was 40 years old. The details broke my heart. She killed herself with helium and a plastic bag. Bert's spokesman later said that she was looking for peace from the mental and emotional weight she had been carrying for a long time. The statement said that she killed herself in a quiet and peaceful way to escape the damage that Aspergers were doing to her mind. Nicky liked learning about science, glacier caves, meteor showers, earthquakes, cats, sunsets, and Tahiti. Bert had even written a song for her in 1969 called Nicky, long before they fully understood how hard things were for her. Her death was a terrible blow to both of her parents. Angie was in pain that would never go away. The death marked the end of a long and hard part of her life that was shaped by fame, sacrifice, and the quiet, unwavering love of a mother who never stopped showing up. Angie went through a very sad time in her life, but there were also happy times when she fell deeply in love. Who did Angie Dickinson love? She loved him, but she didn't marry him. Angie Dickinson and Frank Sinatra were deeply in love with each other for 20 years, dating on and off. Even though they were very close and loved each other, they never got married. Even though their love was very strong, there were still some things that stopped them. Sinatra was married 4 times in his life, and he almost went in a different direction with Dickinson. Later, the star of The Policewoman said that she and Sinatra really thought about getting married, but it never happened. Dickinson said there were reasons she couldn't say yes, even though she calls him the love of her life. They met behind the scenes at the Colgate Comedy Hour in 1953, which was the start of their story. Dickinson was married to her first husband, Gene Dickinson, at the time, while Sinatra was married to Ava Gardner, his second wife. Still, sparks flew. Sinatra asked her if she was getting married, and she said yes. He then asked, "Should I take your number anyway?" She gave him her number. Together on screen, they were great in Ocean's 11, which came out in 1960. Dickinson played Danny Ocean's wife, Beatrice. In the same year, she split up with her husband. After that, she and Sinatra stayed linked, sometimes romantically and sometimes as close friends, but their relationship was always hard to describe. Dickinson talked about their friendship in an interview with Studio 10 in 2016. "I loved him more than anyone else. We dated on and off for a long time. They even talked about 1964 as a wedding year. Afterward, she told Fox News, we did talk about it. We were so comfortable with each other that it wasn't really necessary, but it did come up a couple of times." She said, "That challenge was Sinatra's late-night lifestyle and I wasn't interested in it. He went to sleep at 6 a.m. What did she say to Entertainment Weekly? I was crazy about him. He was great. He was the love of my life, but I wouldn't have wanted to marry him." Of course, Sinatra had his own doubts. He once told Dickinson, "I'm not going to marry a movie star." Dickinson found this funny because he later married actress Mia Farrow in 1966 and was married to Ava Gardner before that. Dickinson said in an interview with CBS Sunday Morning that she had said, "I don't blame you. I wouldn't want that for anyone," she said, "and I didn't want to marry him, so I didn't want him to ask me because I didn't want to say no to Frank Sinatra." They stayed close until Sinatra's death in 1998, even though they didn't get married. Through Burt Bacharach, Dickinson married in 1965. Today, Dickinson smiles and remembers Sinatra with love. "He was the love of my life," she told Fox News. "It makes me happy to think about him. At the very least, he had a lot of ability. He was good at acting and singing. He didn't always take on new challenges, but I think he could have sung anything," she said with love. The real story of Angie Dickinson and John Wayne's relationship. He was hard to understand, wonderful, brave, and stupid. They loved each other deeply, but they didn't get married. Their love story is a bittersweet reminder that sometimes the most meaningful relationships are the ones that don't go the usual route. Angie Dickinson may have been a TV pioneer, but her life off-screen was just as interesting and sometimes scandalous. For example, her on- and off relationship with Sinatra. After her success in Hollywood, there was a rumor that she had a brief romantic relationship with John Wayne. But was it true? Did sparks really fly off the set, or was it all smoke and no fire? While some stories die out over time, the one about Dickinson and Wayne is still interesting, in part because there was undeniable chemistry between them on screen. John Wayne, the rugged Western icon, had worked with many strong female leads over the years, but Angie Dickinson made the biggest impression on him, according to the Duke. They met for the first time in 1958 while making I Married a Woman. In this funny movie, Wayne had a cameo as himself, and Dickinson played his on-screen wife. Even though they only worked together for a short time, something clicked between them. They got along right away, even though they were 24 years apart in age. What began as a professional collaboration would go on to include more movies and a supposedly deeper personal connection. Cast a Giant Shadow, a war movie released in 1966, was their second time working together, but Rio Bravo, a Western directed by the legendary Howard Hawks, is their most famous and acclaimed work together. It is thought to be one of the best Westerns ever made. Rio Bravo showed a different side of John Wayne, one that was softer because of Dickinson's presence. She played Feathers, a brave and funny showgirl who falls in love with Wayne's tough, no-nonsense sheriff. Unlike most of Wayne's earlier movies, Rio Bravo was brave enough to give his character a romantic ending. He famously says at the end, "Sheriff's got himself a girl." Wayne's characters were usually too rough, too focused, or too closed off for love stories to work with them. But it did work with Dickinson, and that's not an accident. She got something from him that not many others could. Their love wasn't just written, it felt real, natural, and deeply believable. For her part, Dickinson never missed a chance to praise Wayne, calling him cute. In a 2011 interview with Austin Culture Map, she talked about how Rio Bravo showed a different, softer, more vulnerable side of the famously tough actor. "I think it's a side of him we didn't see in many of his movies." She said it's hard to argue with that. Her role in Rio Bravo is still one of her best, and it helped bring the cliched cowboy to life. But what about their relationship outside of movies? Hollywood insiders and longtime fans have long wondered if they were dating in real life. The rumors were never confirmed, but they were also never denied. It didn't help that Dickinson was romantically linked to many famous men during her career. Frank Sinatra was one of the most famous, but John Wayne is still talked about because of how hot they were together on screen and how much they admired each other in interviews. "We were damn lucky to have Angie Dickinson." Wayne is said to have said in Michael Munn's book John Wayne, the man behind the story, "She was pretty, attractive, and smart." That's high praise from a man who has worked with some of the best women in Hollywood, like Maureen O'Hara, who was his main co-star. Wayne said more nice things about her, though. He also said, "She was one of the best actresses I've ever worked with," which made her more than just a co-star on the screen. Frithers, Dickinson's character, doesn't show up in Rio Bravo until the second act. But once she does, she steals every scene she's in. Wayne is very tall on screen, but she has the same wit, grace, and confidence. She's not just the love interest. Her strength is the same as the sheriff's. Rio Bravo has got bigger over time, which is interesting. Even though it did well when it came out in 1959, reviewers and filmmakers didn't realize how important it really was until many years later. This Western was chosen by the American Film Institute as one of the 10 best of all time in 2008. It was added to the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress in 2014 because it was important to culture, history, or art. Even in new movies, you can see its marks all over the place. John Carpenter, the famous director, said it was a big inspiration for his 1976 movie Assault on Precinct 13. And Rio Bravo is well known for more than just the story or direction. Every member of the group is great, from Walter Brennan's unforgettable performance as Stumpy to Dean Martin and Ricky Nelson, who play musicians. That being said, the movie really comes alive when Wayne and Dickinson talk to each other. At that time, it's not often that a Western strikes such a beautiful balance between grit and romance, and even less often that the relationship feels so real. The reports were never fully put to rest by either Dickinson or Wayne. That could be part of the magic. During a time when Hollywood kept secrets and worked hard to build legends, some facts were better kept quiet. There is a legacy of a movie and a couple that still fascinates people more than 60 years later. One thing is clear, they had a great relationship on screen, whether they were lovers off screen. Angie Dickinson and John Wayne made a movie memory that makes you think of possibilities even now. Let me know what you think about the friendship between Angie Dickinson and Frank Sinatra. Let us know what you think in the space below. Don't forget to share, like, and follow for more. Also, click on the video that comes up next. It will be fun for you.